Overwatch 2 will get rid of loot boxes. As the game transitions to a free-to-play seasonal content model, the controversial loot award system will be replaced with an in-game shop. So in Overwatch 2, it says loot boxes are no more. It's going to be free-to-play, and there will be an in-game shop where you can buy cosmetics and things like that. So no loot boxes like they had in Overwatch 1. Now, it says there will be a battle pass. The developers declined to go into detail about what the battle pass will feature, but there will be a battle pass and an in-game shop. And they talk a little bit about in the article about sort of the background of the backlash against Diablo Immortal and how that has been structured, where the pay-to-win structure there. I'm curious what you guys think of Overwatch 2 coming out and saying we're not going to do loot boxes, because loot boxes were the primary, if not basically the only form of monetization in Overwatch 1. So this is a pretty dramatic shift. I'm curious what you guys think of the shift and what you think drove the shift.
Well, if you're Overwatch, I think monetization is a secondary concern for you right now, right? Your primary concern is anyone going to even play this game? Because it's been so long, it's been demanded for so long, and there are so many great competing titles out there now that they're not as dominant as they once were. So I love the shift to free to play. It opens up your game to a wider audience. There are so many kids out there that can't afford a 60, 70, even a $40 or $30 game. So going free to play to me is always a great thing. You want your IP in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Otherwise, there's nothing to monetize in the first place. And it's just kind of funny and unfortunate that that's where they're at. But it's a good move, I think, for the Overwatch community. And I don't know if it's a Hail Mary or something that drastic. I don't think so. But it's definitely telling, right? Because we had this conversation a week ago and probably the week before that. What was it? It was the Strauss Zelnick story where they're actually raising the prices of their games, right? And that's
Call of Duty.
Oh, right. It was Call of Duty. Excuse me. And so that's the difference here, right? That we're looking at is Call of Duty, immensely popular game. Tons of people still playing it, even though I personally am frustrated by it and left. But then when you compare it to Overwatch, which is in a very different scenario, taking the opposite. Really interesting to see one parent company taking both routes, right? And kind of A/B testing, which is going to be the most successful. But I think it kind of just proves that it's not one or the other, but more of a matter of circumstance.
Do you guys think that this signals that Activision Blizzard's concerned about how many people are going to play the game?
Yeah, I don't think I would go that broad to draw. I mean, they probably are concerned, but I don't know that I would necessarily draw that conclusion just from this. I think this is a move that's kind of been coming in the industry a lot more and more, where we've seen a move really away from loot boxes towards like the battle pass system. Fortnite did that. Apex Legends did that. They still may use a little bit of loot box mechanics, but it's largely that battle pass system that drives the monetization versus like one-off or pay-to-win type loot box style mechanics. So I think it's more that broadly than anything else. Yeah.
Lindsay, you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, when you first were reading this story, I thought, okay, who cares? Nobody likes this game anyway. So I suppose my sort of hot take is that loot boxes or no loot boxes, this doesn't really matter, that people are disappointed in Overwatch 2 and that Activision didn't do the type of pivot it needed to save this franchise in the first place. So yes, I think they're concerned about player base.
But guys, doesn't this feel a little bit inconsistent to you? Like last week we had the discussion about Call of Duty raising the price by $10, right? And the conclusion there seemed to be something to the effect of, we know people are going to buy Call of Duty anyways, right? And so you can raise it $10, $15, whatever. People are still going to pay it. That was sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of the conclusion we all came to. With Overwatch, it's maybe a little bit different story, right? There's definitely not as much. my belief around Overwatch is there's a hardcore group of people still playing Overwatch 1 who are going to play Overwatch 2. So why not take the same attitude of, well, the people who are going to play Overwatch 2 are going to play Overwatch 2, so we should charge $50 for it or $30 for it anyways, right? Like, why make it free to play if you know that there's a player base that's going to adopt your game anyways? You know, the only reason I see for the change. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Isn't the single player still going to be? I think what they're doing is basically separating the multiplayer and the single player, which kind of makes sense if you think you make the multiplayer free to play and then monetize it with microtransactions. So you kind of, like Jimmy said, broaden the base, bring as many people into the top of the funnel as possible. Plus, you get those network effects. You don't want to be a multiplayer game that doesn't have enough players, so people start dropping out because they can't find matches. And then they're going to still charge, I believe, for the story missions and like the PvE modes. I believe that was the take that they're going, or the route that they're going down, which I think actually makes sense. It's a bit of like the opposite of the Warzone approach, where Warzone started with the free, the paid game, then shifted to free to play. It's kind of the opposite. They started free to play, go to paid.
It's an interesting point. It's sort of consistent with COD, though, where the single-player game's paid and the multiplayer battle royale is free to play. Maybe that's the consistency. Let me just get caught up on comments here. Matt says, how can you not like this for Overwatch 2? Isn't it possible that this solves all the issues people were talking about when the beat first came out? Making it free to play seems really smart. Just don't make it like Diablo Immortal, like you said. I mean, in-game store, I think, is definitely going to get less backlash than loot boxes, right? Like, just on a apples to apples comparison, if all other things are equal, better to be able to buy the cosmetics you want than a loot box you don't know what you're going to get. Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
But I mean, clearly, this is better. It's just interesting that they make a whole announcement out of it. I don't know. This is what I'm trying to read into, right? Like, what are they trying to accomplish with the PR around it? Adam says, probably a Microsoft direction. There's not a single first-party Microsoft game released in the last couple of years that I can think of that is still doing loot boxes. They've all moved to stores. I wonder also what are the economics of loot boxes versus stores in terms of average spend per user. I don't know if any of you guys know or have seen data around that. Jeff, maybe you have on the mobile side.
I'm guessing you see more people spend in the store, like a greater percentage of the overall population will spend, but maybe the dollars spent is lower because with the loot boxes, you get those whales that like just have an item they need to get, so they'll spend $1,000 to get through, to get it. Versus the store, maybe you have more people spend, like a greater percentage of people, but they spend lower because they just buy the one item they want. Just my hypothesis.
It's an interesting one. It sounds reasonable and plausible. Matt says, like, it feels like they're desperately trying to not make another Diablo Immortal, which seems like a good idea if you ask me. I mean, I did see somewhere that Diablo Immortal made like $25 million so far. Not that seems like such a huge amount in the grand scheme of Activision Blizzard, but maybe they're not Activision Blizzard has always been kind of deaf to the backlash against them anyways, so I don't know if it's a reaction. Adam D says, I think they're worried about the game being popular in the player base, but they're basically implementing the system within Call of Duty. Yeah, I think, Adam D, that's basically the conclusion here, that it's consistent with Call of Duty, which is maybe what they're trying to standardize, like give multiplayer away, monetize through in-game stores, and charge for single-player campaigns. But I also agree that they are worried about the player base. Adam R. says, the same reason they made the Halo Infinite multiplayer free-to-play, they need people playing. This is true. For multiplayer to succeed, you cannot have 15-minute queue times or whatever they would be if maybe you gated it with a $30 charge.